So here's a funny story. Sorry, here's a funny story, everybody. Um, I was gonna go ahead and make an announcement. Let's refresh this and see if it auto announced for me. I have actually been streaming. I have actually been streaming for the last hour and a half ish. But I got burnt by a mob crush because I didn't understand exactly um, what I was doing. But the good news is I recorded all of it and I recorded it at high quality. So I'll be able to cut that down, pop that on Facebook or sorry, YouTube for you. I'm just going to make an announcement on all the things. Really quick. Sorry, guys. Again, I did all this, I thought, but reasons. And we'll go ahead and make that a real link. And we'll also go ahead and make it cool. There we go. Get the words is out. The words is. All right. So here's the deal, guys. I was live. Not on time. I had some audio and NDI struggles again, but not a big deal. But close to it, I was live, and Mob Crush apparently wants you to re-enter all your details every single time. You can't just go live again. Or maybe I'm not understanding something, but at least that's how. That is how. What is it telling me right now? It's not telling me anything. That. Yep. Cool. Let's go over to. I need. Okay, there we go. I got the chat. All right, chat is up again. All right, so I didn't understand maybe about Mob Crush. It wanted me to redo everything, so I just spent a whole bunch of time teaching nobody how to make the vocals thicker. So let me give you a quick preview if you're here, and if you are here, say hello. But let me give you a quick preview of what we went over. So we were trying to first user challenge that we went over was blending the BVs, right? See if I can read this challenge out. The way it was responded to me, making my BVs sound together. So that was the response I got. So what we did is we went through, we took this female lead vocal from the other night, we blended in like a second lead, kept her kind of crisp, but panned her off to the side and ducked her down a little. Then we blended in two male BVs, hard pan left and right, and we kept them warm. So this was a little bit of a cheat because these particular BVs were male with a female lead, so it worked out really, really well. But on our BVs, we kept them warmer than our lead and put them in the same space. We're using this aux called Studio, which is just a hall verb. And then I took that one step further and I added in a slap, and we talked about using a slap and the modulation on the slap to create completely additional takes. So what I'll do real quick to give you a taste before I cut the YouTube video and post it sometime this week. Hey Micah, how you doing? Good to see you. I'll show you the blend and then I'll pop in this so you can hear, and then look forward to a post later this week where I cut that down and I give you guys the recap that you missed because of reasons with Mob Crush not letting me go live. Anyway, so here we go. So I'll play the arrangement in full, then we'll solo it out, and I'll let you hear what this little treat did. Ready? All right. So I'll take these out first so you can just hear the lead vocal, and then we'll add the BVs, and then I'll add the slap. Okay, here we go. Also, if the music is too low, please let me know. Actually, let me go ahead and check that real quick. I need to get me another way to control OBS. So we are a bit low on the music, so let me go ahead and bring the music up. All the bing bongs. All the bing bongs. All right, let me bring this up quite a bit. So I think we sat around negative 14 the other night. So we'll do that. And then I will go ahead and flip back. Hey, Dave. Oh, Dave, you would have loved what happened. I went live on time and I was recording, so I have it to put on YouTube, but I went live and Mobcrush wasn't sending me out anywhere. So I just sat and taught nobody forever. But we did some talk on some BV stuff. And then I'll be able to post that for everybody on YouTube later this week if I can get my mices and keyboards and stuff back. All right, so let me just show you what I did, and then we'll look for the posting on YouTube about how to do this. So first, I'm just gonna listen for the vocal. Hey, Daniel. Also, if the music is too low or too loud, let me know. So I'll go ahead and add the BVs that we did. Cool. And then we'll show you the double. All right, and then I'll just show you. I'll pull these things out. Ready? So we'll go ahead and we'll solo all these out. These buttons, yes, and then I will mute these so you can hear how we built it. So this is our lead vocal. And we added BVs. And then I added this. Without it. Oop, and then I've been having that fun noise. Anyway, so if you want to see how I got there with one plugin, I will be cutting that down because I did capture it and posting it on YouTube later this week. Because I went through that for the last however long, explaining all the steps in the process, and oh boy, was it not live. Fantastically not live. So that was a whole ton of fun. All right, so let's go through some more of these. Let's get to the next one. Layout when it's on a DAW. Okay, so Santi's asking one of his challenges laying it out for a DAW. So I don't know if Santi's on right now, but for the sake of everybody, basically, well, at least when I mix in a DAW versus on a console, is I tend to lay out things fairly similarly. Now, for the sake of just checking this, let's go ahead and see. Does this give me... It does. Okay, so the new version of Pro Tools Regular has VCA, so I would normally add VCAs like I would on a console. But I lay it out fairly straightforward, similar to my patch lists, right? So I have my drums, and then sometimes I tuck my drum plate here. Sometimes I put all my reverb returns together. We've got some ambience in here just because when I'm doing a studio session or a live album recording, I keep my ambience here. This is a habit, but you can put your ambience down the other end. Then I've got my bass guitar, so I've got my rhythm section together, and then I'll usually put all of my guitars. So my acoustics and my electrics will come next. And then I will do my keyboards and my tracks and my fun stuff, my percussions and all that kind of stuff. Strings will follow. And then I'll have my vocals down here. And the reason I keep my vocals down at the end is because I do a lot of, once I've built my mix and I've gone through almost from a left to right kind of a standpoint, sometimes I start with a vocal, a lead vocal, and then I'll start drums and work my way down. But I spend quite a lot of time making sure that the vocals are sitting with the reverbs and everything, and I just duck back. So it's kind of convenient to keep my vocals down here by my VCAs. But here's where I would put my VCAs, any of my bus returns, and then because I've built this particular session to be more like a broadcast session, you can see that I've gone ahead and loaded up all of my aux sends on every channel to be identical. Not necessarily in level, but in layout, right? So on a console, you have your aux sends and they're pretty static. Aux 1 is where it is, 2 is where it is, 3 is where it is. They're in order. They're pretty static. So I've gone ahead and I've done that here. And for the most part, I've just kind of put a stock channel strip in here. And I'm doing that on purpose so that I can stay close to stock as possible. But I will, in the near future, I will be exploring more of the Waves options, and we'll actually, I believe, I have a plan. Don't quote me on this, but I believe I have a plan to actually run this in a way that I can do external processing on plugins, so I can mimic what a console would be. Now, again, the goal would be that hopefully through whatever support I get, be it just viewership or sponsors or whatever, somebody wants to donate. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I'm hoping the goal would be to actually get consoles in here and actually wire this thing up so I can show you guys this. But for now, we're going to stick in Pro Tools and we're going to build it like this, like a console. Pro Tools was yelling at me, but sometimes I will take my like vocal delay and I'll put it into my studio like that. So I went ahead and pre-built these. Obviously, you can see like bus 2 was my vocal delay, but I don't have it inserted on the return for feedback loop reasons. But even when I was doing this, I was running into a weird glitch in Pro Tools where it was telling me there was a feedback loop when I didn't even have them there. So I've just kind of had to shut these off for now. This is a master fader, so I've gone ahead and put it in master fader. If you understand how master faders work in Pro Tools or some DAWs, then it's a little bit more, it's more like the actual rails. So imagine that this level control is actually way up here, and it's controlling the feed in and out of the actual, the actual output rather than after all the plugins. So if I was to push this up, then the input to these plugins would actually turn up and you would drive all of these harder. That's a Pro Tools thing. I don't believe that that's how all DAWs operate, but that's how they operate. But even on consoles, I will keep my master faders around Unity, right at Unity. So yeah, as we got Giovanni's here. Hey man, good to see you. You're on Facebook. Dave's watching on YouTube. Daniel's watching on YouTube. David, it looks like David maybe popped over from, oh, I see. Okay, there's just a second. And Mike is on Facebook. Good to see you guys. All right. So that's how I do DAWs. Let's go on to the next one. Getting a seat for the bass. Oh, this is good. Okay. So let's talk about this. Getting a seat for the bass and a keyboard. Are you actually talking about the people? CJ's asking, getting a seat for the bass and keyboard tuve. I don't know what tuve is, but I'm going to assume he's talking about sitting the bass and the keyboards together. So a lot of our modern worship songs, we've got, let's see if I can go find a good one. Here's one probably there. All right, let's see what this one is. Oh, I got all these things going on. I will, we got to actually go find this thing because it's not actually there. We got one here. So I wouldn't necessarily, you can hear that nice bottom end in that. And if you look over at the meter, so the bottom left side of the meter is showing you frequency over stereo spectrum. And you can see that bass is kind of popping left and right like that. You can't really do this on a console, but that's not necessarily a good thing for mixes, especially when you've got like aux fed subs and things like that, and you're rolling off your top of your PA. I'll show you what I normally do with that, but it requires only plugins that actually have this feature. Stereo Field BX Control I think has it, and Stereo Maker also has it. So this is a Brainworks plugin. And they have this mono maker feature. And what the mono maker does is it takes frequencies below whatever your set point is and it makes it mono. So that usually tends to work better. So you can, hopefully you can see what we got here. It's just pretty gnarly. Oh, sorry. Air gap. Wrong channel. Okay, here we go. Let's try that again. Okay, can you hear that? How it's tightened down that low end to the center? Versus being all over the place. There you go. So now if you're running aux fed subs or full left right or whatever, it's going to be balanced instead of swinging all over your room. And then let's manipulate this a little bit. All right, so we're already taking too much off the bottom, so you're going to hear a lot more low end when I do this. Hopefully, if you're listening on something good, right? I want that one, but I want to take the filter off. Let's assume that this has got like it's carrying a lot of your low end, right? So let's zero that out and let's turn that into a shelf. Okay, it's pushing it pretty hard, right? And then let's go look at our bass guitar, which I think we used, that one's got the distortion on it. Let's see. For the sake of this and not distracting us, I'm going to turn that off. So this arrangement's a little bit, got 8s on the bass guitar. Okay, so we've got, this one's a little bit of a tricky example because they actually play into each other. But if I was doing this live and I was worried about it, so this is the low end of the bass. Let's go ahead and mute this real quick. I don't know if you can hear this because you may need some decent headphones to hear this. But this is everything below around about 100 something, maybe 90. And if I was trying to have that low end carry it, which I probably wouldn't in this arrangement, I might, so that keyboard low end, I might just remove it, right? And just let the keyboard, so high pass is a little higher than I would. Now, if I'm doing this, I need to pay attention to the phase relationship I'm doing with the original upper end of the bass. So let's go ahead and lots of low end. You can see it on the meter. Kind of, well, maybe you can, but a little bit less low end. Let's see what that does with that sawtooth bass, which is a terrible arrangement to do this in. But with this arrangement, we're pushing that low end in that keyboard. So cutting off some cutting off some of the bass guitar and letting the keyboard low end. We got a lot of sub basses happening now on stage. What are they called? Sub fatty, sub 37s. Keyboard synth keyboard basses. Lots of sub synths in the tracks and everything with the praise songs. So what I might do is so normally on my consoles I set up like a bass high, I would call the first channel, right? And then on my second I would call it bass low, right? So that I would know that this was my low end, love. Some people call it Holy Spirit fader. And then I would I would program my scenes so that, this fader might be pulled back quite a fair bit in the songs that had heavy sub from the keys or the tracks. And then I would bring it back up to where, and if you've ever gotten a chance to hang out with me at a front of house, I usually run my start of songs for my bass, unless the intro's got something real massive. I run the bass low track 3 to 4 dB under my main, and then as the song builds, I'll come back up, and for choruses and stuff, I'll hit that 0. Sometimes I'll go above, and that's to keep the low end pretty solid and where it needs to be for each song and section of each song in the room. So that's how I play that. Some of the tracks that I've gotten a lot of low end in, I will actually. So let's take this keyboard that we've been listening to because it has a pretty good low end example here, right? So let's assume that this is how it was given to me from the studio. Just crazy. Well, I'll EQ that on my console and I'll take that out so far to even, right? I might do this because sometimes they just get so much of it that they're not being mixed for a PA, they're being mixed for headphones and things like that. So I'll take all that super low end out, right? And this is actually probably what I did in the actual mix of this song. Now the low end is clear for the bass to carry it, which makes a little bit more sense for this arrangement. And then if I was to go ahead and just actually play the song, this would make more sense to you. The rhythms are kind of back and forth. So you can hear it accenting every once in a while. Hear it? Bop, 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 bop. So it's adding a bounce to the whole track, and I'm not actually getting into mixing all those keys together right now to do it, but I would bring that stuff out. This particular track is actually meant to add the bounces to make that head bop or that mosh pit jump kind of have a lot more energy. Yeah, makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I'm gonna pick if the tracks and the keyboards are absolutely killer, produced super well, and the low end does what I want it to do for the room, I'm probably gonna err on the side of that and pull out the low end from my bass a bit for those songs. If it's just messy and all over the place, and the engineer who mixed it just went ham with the low end, I'm probably gonna cut it out and stick with what I know I can control, or shelve it down. Maybe not cut it out, shelve it down. But that's how I do that. Let's go to the next one. Oh, I appreciate that. Some love from the comments. Audio challenges not having you on console. I appreciate that. I miss you guys down there in Florida. That was David from, I believe they had a band called All the Way. And they were amazing people to work with. I miss him. I miss those guys. Let's see. Bad musicians, how to fix that? Well, there's one way to fix that, bro. That's Senor Sierra. I love that guy too. I was in college with his brother. But that's Omar. Omar he used to do a lot of the Young and Free tours and stuff. Here's how you do that, right? Take this fader here. We got a bad musician. Boom. Just go ahead and pull that fader right down. No, seriously, you gotta do your best. You gotta ride faders, right? So if you can't pull out a guitar when that guitar's the only thing you've got for guitars, right? So you're gonna have to look for what else you can rely on, right? So if we've got if you've got a keyboard player that's supposed to be playing piano and has missed the cue and is just riding the pads, you're gonna have to look at your mix real quick in about a split second. Realize what's happening and maybe shift a little bit to the rhythm guitar and make it feel a little different, but it's got support, or you've got your guitar players going nuts, duck them back a little bit and rearrange on the faders to piano or something, and be a little bit over creative with it, so that you can keep the energy there. You're looking to keep the energy there. Yeah. Next one. Let's go on to the next comment. Hey, Santi, actually texted me. Santi, I got it. Hopefully he can pop on at some point. The snare, always the snare. Well, hopefully we kind of covered that a little bit. I'll probably post some of the snare videos to YouTube. Let's see. Gain staging for optimal loudness and mastering. All right, we got mix fade Dave, is that right? Mix and fade Dave. Love it. So you're on Twitch watching right now. Gain staging for optimal loudness and mastering. So if you're going to a mastering engineer, mastering house, mastering engineer, then you're really going to, let's see if I can demonstrate this. We're going to lose a fair bit of level when I do this. That's the crazy one there. Yeah. Okay, so we should lose quite a bit of level. This is good for mastering. Okay. I got plenty of headroom here, and a mastering engineer especially with a 32-bit file has plenty of room to work with. The thing with mastering is if you give a mastering engineer a file that's way too hot, there's a good chance that you may risk oversample peaks, and he's going to wind up turning it down as best he can anyway. If you're going in and out of Pro Tools and you've got intersample peaks, well, good luck. You're printing those. Intersample peaks are. Let us see here. Can I show you this in the actual edit window? This actually may be. Let's see here. No, here's a good example right here. Okay, so let's take this full lead and I'll show you something. Okay, right? So let's see that. Let's say that this is in your song, and you've got this wave, and I'm zoomed in a fair bit, and you've got it's sampled here and it's sampled here, right? Well, if you're pushing it so close to the top, and the digital to analog converter sees these two samples and is trying to figure out what was happening right here. Let's go. Yeah, that's good right there. You see how there's a couple of quick changes, some higher frequency changes right here in this peak. Well, if you got a sample here and here for, let's say, because this is a lower frequency wave right now, but let's say that this is a full crazy mix like up here in this top waveform, and let's say you got a sample here and here. Well, you might have a good converter, but your converter might go, well, I don't know what's happening between these two samples, and what it might do is it might go ahead and draw above zero, right? It might recreate a waveform that's over the maximum output of the converter, and that actually will result in peak clipping, right? And there's nothing you can do about that, even though I'm quite clearly not clipping here in the digital domain, but in the analog I will be. Now, this can happen with lower frequencies. That can be a lower value. Higher frequencies actually can be lower value, can spike quite high. So that's why you get these things called true peak meters and true peak limiters, and they're trying to do the math for what most converters will do, but they're not perfect. None of them are perfect. They'll be a good aid to you, but none of them are perfect. So your best case for mastering, right? Your best case scenario is to leave yourself plenty of headroom. Make sure your mono, like if you know what, do a Google search for CATS. Is it Bob Cat's K14 metering system? And real quick is you set your monitor, if you have a monitor controller, set it to unity, right? All the way at 0, whatever 0 is, not over unity, but 0. And you're going to play, I believe, I'm doing this without rereading it and referencing the source, but if I remember correctly, you're going to play Pink Noise. Yeah, I think it's Pink Noise. You're going to play Pink Noise, and you're going to use, you're going to start with one speaker and put an SPL meter in your listening position, and you're going to raise that speaker to about 80. Don't quote me on this. You're going to have to reference the material, 83, 82 dB, and then you're going to stop that speaker and go to the other speaker and bring it to the same value, 82 or 83 dBc, I think it is, and then what you're going to do for K14 is you're going to then bring your controller's volume 14 dB below, 6 dB below, because it's negative 20, set for like a negative 20 value, to negative 6, and you're not going to touch your monitor controller. So the other thing you're going to do is you're going to switch all your meters, right? This is Pro Tools has this, but you can also get plugins that have this. So K14 metering. Did you see that there? I'll show you again here. You have 12, 14, and 20, right? Okay. So this is going to give you a numeric value. Here, if I change all of them, let's change all of them to K14. Okay, so this is going to give you a numeric value for 0, right about where it needs to be, 14 dB down. And it will change if you use 20 or 12, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to be shooting for that 0 position. Now, if we quickly check what that 0 position is in full scale, so let's go sample peak right here, right? So that 0 position is going to be somewhere around 10 dB down, maybe 14 dB down from full scale, right? So plenty of headroom. But you're going to gain here. So like if you're building your mix, your kicks are going to want to be at you're going to want to set your kicks and snare to like -3, because as you start adding things, it's going to push up there. And you're going to want to keep your mix right around that 0. Every time I've done this, I have a mastering engineer that I work with. Every time I've done this, he's been super happy, and he's able to get a plenty loud mix or master back to me. And he told me I'm one of the only mix engineers that he's had that doesn't have intersample peaks. And the only reason is because I'm metering at such a position that I've got plenty of headroom, right? So when I make things sound good so I'm not touching my monitor controller, and I'm aiming for this in the DAW, right? So remember, well, you guys weren't watching because I was streaming to nobody, but that was a fail. But so I was saying before that EQ and level are codependent, right? You can't set an EQ and figure it's going to be sounding great at every volume. That just doesn't happen. Human ear doesn't work that way. And you can't set a volume, you know, and it's, you know, nice and low, and you make it sound nice and sparkly and everything. Well, then you crank it up and it's hella bright. Well, that has a lot to do with, again, Fletcher-Munson curves and everything. So this metering an operating sort of paradigm, which also works for broadcast if you wanted to use it. This paradigm, there's revisions to this. They've somebody, is it Gearsluts? I think it might be Gearsluts. I'm not entirely sure, but somebody actually wrote a revision to this that works a little bit better for broadcast. And it has to do with how you set the level, like what level you use to set. It's a fantastic system regardless, whichever one you use. Because it will force you, once you get that signal to that level, because you've set a volume for your speakers and you've dedicated a listening level on your monitor controller, as you get that, whatever source you're listening to the right level, if you hear that it's too bright or too dark or too whatever, and you set it, it's probably going to translate much, much better because you're in the sweet spot for human hearing, where we're most sort of, I want to say linear, because human hearing is not linear, but it's the most average, right? You hand that off to a mastering engineer, and he's going to be able to go to town on it. If you are the mastering engineer, right? Let's say you are the mastering engineer. So our mix is coming in, right? Let's. So ironically, you can see where I'm at on this K14, right? So what I might do is I might look at a couple things, right? So I might just go ahead and put another. What's a good way to do this? I want to use stock plugins because I don't want to. Let's just use another stock plugin, right? So we'll use this one. We'll go soften that knee just a little. These plugins are a little bit hard on their attacks, so this is a little bit more analog-ish in how it's detecting things, right? For this one, I'm going to tell the compressor not to listen to my crazy low end, right? Just because I want that to come through. And we're going to keep this down around 2-to-1, and we're going, or 1.5 to 2-to-1, right? So we've already got one of these happening right here. Okay. If I let's bypass that one and show you this one. Okay. See this? About 1.5 dB on the hits. See that? So what I'm going to do at this one is something similar, but I'm going to be, oh boy, make it active. Don't bypass it. Excuse me, guys. Sorry, I need a cough button. So I'm going to try to... Not so much. So let's see, we took a dB off here, we gave it back a dB, we're taking another dB off here, let's give it back another dB. So we're ever so slightly removing it. Now if you wanted to, let's see here, we'll go 20, we'll go 80. If you wanted to get a little crazy and do 4 dB. Then match the volume. Okay. So a little bit of glue happening. Hopefully you can hear what's happening. Hey Michael, what's up? Nice to see you. Or, well, see you on chat. Michael's on Facebook right now. So you can see how it's bringing it a little bit more together, and we're getting a little bit more full, right? So now, let's see if I can show you this real quick. We'll bypass this one. Okay, and we'll bypass. Oh, man, I keep doing that. Make it active. Bypass. Cool. That's not what we want to know. We're not doing anything here, so this will work. Look at how dynamic this is. And then we'll... Sorry, I don't know what that noise is. So it's a little bit difficult to see because I'm actually gaining a little bit of level, which is fine. But basically I've got 2 compressors happening, and then I'm going to hit a brick wall limiter. Now, I've already added some level to this, so I'm going to reset this limiter all together. So I'll go ahead and... Where are you? Here. Pull you down. Pull you up. So threshold's all the way up, gain's all the way down. Put it back in line. And... See this little orange line here? It's a very fast limiter, so you're not going to see too much of this. It's killing all the peaks, right? There you go, there's one. See this? Right? Now I've got all 10 or 14 dB that I can go back up, right? So let's go ahead and pull this up because I want to see it. Woohoo! All the fun noises. Sorry, when you're mastering, you don't want to go crazy with your EQs. Usually it has quite a bit of an effect on it. Anyway, so we're at... short term is -24. We want to come up on this. Music's probably quiet for you guys, right? So it's about to get loud. So hopefully, fair warning, it's going to get loud, right? So I got that pretty nice, almost 14 dB gain. I can come back up. If I pull up what everybody's pretty used to looking at for a meter, let's go with sound field, meter. Let's see, did they move it? Come on. Let's go here, sound field. They may have moved it on me. Let's do it this way. I'll pull up BX meter. This will be a good one. Peak is at -8, -2. So we're still pretty dynamic. We're at -12 RMS, which is fine. Basically, I'm hesitant to push this much harder with stock plugins because it's going to get pretty crunchy, but I can. I'll see if I could just demonstrate that. Forgive me, but this is probably going to... right, so I'm like -3 on my peak, and I was somewhere around. Yeah, so if I come up another 2 dB, 2.5 dB, I'm going to be up at -8, -8.5, which is where I personally like to be for most mixes. This particular limiter sounds like crap, so I don't really want to do that. But there's better limiters out there. If you were mastering yourself, I would definitely invest in some. UAD's got a great one. Their precision limiter is fantastic. Slate's got a pretty good one. There's so many out there now, but yeah, if you're mastering yourself, you're gonna wind up stacking probably a few more of these, trying to get your dynamics musically in line, which is kind of like, I don't know if you noticed. Of course, I've got 2 open now, confusing everybody. But I don't know if you noticed, but when I did this second compressor, I kind of had a faster attack, and I let that release go. And here, let's see if I can demonstrate this. Let's not go so crazy on this limiter. You know, we'll pull it back down like that. Yep. And we'll come back up. Yep. All right, now listen to this when I pull this one off. It's pretty normal. When I turn it on, listen to the bounce of the groove. I don't know if you can hear it, but I can. With it off, it's pretty straightforward. When I put it back in, so you can hear the timing of the attack and the release. I've dialed it in so that it matches the groove quite a bit. So you've got that. I'm pushing that bounce again, right? It's all about the song. It's all about what is the song doing? What's the message of the song? It's the musical feeling. What's the groove of the lyric? What's the lyric wanting to say? What's it? You know, what's the message here? Breaking free, sinking deep, like just getting, just completely abandoned, right? So we're aiding that. We're not fighting that, right? So this compressor is dialed in to do that. So you want to do that as you're mastering yourself. You want to keep those things in mind. Don't just go for loud's sake, right? Nowadays with Spotify and YouTube and Facebook and everybody doing their own loudness normalization, don't go for loud's sake, right? Learn what your loudness points are needing to be, like -14 for YouTube posting, and it's anywhere between -10, -14 LUFF or LKFS. It's this 2 ways to look at it. Get a good loudness meter and just go for that. Like, you'll notice when I was trying to push this thing to -8 RMS, this Waves WLM meter was probably going like, what are you doing? Because I was way overshooting. But now when I'm back down, it's happier, right? This is actually, the target is -14, so see? So you can see it's, I got to dial in how this is reading, but when I hit that -14, because I have a target for it, it goes, oh yeah, you're good. That's way quieter than I was for RMS, right? I hope that makes sense. Let's see if we can get another. So it's 7:30 now. Let's see if there's one I can get through quickly, just to make up for not having been on stream because I was streaming to nobody. Let's see. Oh man, I love these comments are awesome. Using compressors. Okay, so the Real Cody, I need, if the Real Cody's on, I really need to get some dialogue in here to show you, but my go-to for vocals and compression, typically, this does change, but typically my go-to for compression on vocals is anywhere from 4, if it's a lead vocal, I go up to 10, but 4, 6, 8 to 1. I will be fast on my attack, fast on my release. This is to hide, as best I can, this is to hide the fact that I am compressing. Now, this has got 100 picoseconds, so I probably would go a little slower normally. This is just me rushing through this a little bit quick. This works on this compressor. This is like a Euphonics modeled compressor. It happens to work, but I'm usually down. 63 is actually on the longer side, so 40 to 80 on the release. 80 is on the long side for me, but I'm keeping the attack and the release such that it's getting on my vocal and getting off my vocal, and I'm usually compressing where I need to compress. So here's a good example. I can actually show you this over here. Let's get back out to medium. We'll zoom out a little bit, And let's see here. Cool. Okay, so you can see this, right? Check this out. We've got this vocal here, which is pretty consistent, right? This wasn't compressed. Oh, let's get rid of the groups here. Okay. This vocal here, this third vocal down, pretty consistent. Now he's dynamic in that he gets loud when he needs to get loud, right? So his overall level is a little lower on the recording than everybody else's, right? But he's very consistent in his parts. So him, I'm going to be looking at making sure that I'm not going crazy unless it's in the bigger bits right there. But then you've got a vocal like this or a vocal like this, right? So kind of all over the place, even within a part, right? Or part to part, right? So here's half of a bridge, here's half of a bridge, and we go, it's a little bit hotter here than we are here, even though these are going to be similar phrases. So him, I'm going to be wanting to control a lot more. So I don't have a real good example of a controlled vocal, but we basically want to want our vocals to be somewhere like this with our compressor, nice and under control, so that we can use our fingers, which are our best compressors. So if that means taking 4 dB off on average, cool. If that means taking 8 dB off on average, cool. Be careful when you're mixing live with a PA, because the more you compress and bring up the volume, the more you're bringing the noise floor up and decreasing your signal to noise, your signal to feedback potentials, right? You're going to get closer to that point of feedback. Cool. I hope that makes some sense too. My goal is to just share what I've experienced and picked up in a way that it makes sense. So from stop streaming. Okay, so Gabe Kilby, another friend of mine, asks how to stop streaming services from squashing the mix. Well, that's how you do it. You hit your -14 LUFS, right? Stay in that safe zone. Negative. There's no published loudness rating for live streaming that I know of, except I believe there may be for Twitch, but like YouTube hasn't published one. I don't think, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Facebook has either. But we do know that staying at -14 LUFS with a true peak no higher than -1, which a lot of these good meters, so invest in this. I think this was on sale. It might still be on sale. Invest in this Waves WLM, or invest in a TC Electronic Clarity M. It's I don't know, $300, something like that. Save your coffee for a couple months and just get it. It's got a bunch of ins and outs on it, and it will show you your LUFS and your true peak. The cool thing about this Waves one, if you're able to run Waves, is there's a let's see if I can show you. There's another version of this. Soundfield. There's another version of this that has the plus version. So the plus version actually has a true peak limiter in it, right? Now this true peak limiter, like I said, all true peak measurements and limiters aren't going to be perfect, but they're pretty close. There's my favorite one is not installed on this computer, but this one's pretty good. But it will allow you to limit true peaks. Your true peaks have to be at no higher than -1 dB full scale. So these types of meters / limiters will help you do that. So do that. -14, no true peaks higher than -1, and you should avoid that. 325. So Dave, Mix and Fade Dave says about 325 for the Clarity M. It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. It's tiny enough to throw in your bag, your go bag, your gig bag, your backpack, whatever. It's absolutely worth it. Get a little case for it if you probably a good case for it on Amazon. Might even come with a case, but get it, bring it with you on every gig you do, and put it on your broadcast outputs or whatever you're working on. It's got plenty of scales in it, I believe, too. So if you just wanted to use it for a regular meter for live for in the house, works there too. Let's see. So we went over those, more about loud mixes. Loud mixes are often have a lot more to do with the level that you mix them at, not actually being loud, but the level you mix them at, and then how dynamic and how you fit the EQs together. Like I said, human hearing is sensitive at some frequencies more than others. So if you can play that curve to your advantage, you can have a mix that sounds loud that isn't necessarily loud and it doesn't hurt people. I'll probably go more into that at a later date. Overall clarity at low volumes, more so fitting things together with EQ. We'll be going over lots of that as the days go by. Anything else that's really good to talk about? Okay, cool. I'm probably going to call it there for tonight. However, if you're watching right now, please look at 380. Yeah, it probably went up because of all the stuff that's going on right now. Please look at whatever you've got, whatever gigs you do have in the past that you've recorded, or potentially gigs you have coming up, and try to record them. I'm going to be opening up submissions for your multi-tracks. We want to try to get a song, 2 songs, whatever we can fit in, preferably under 5 gigs if we can do it, just because I'm not sure that we'll be able to support larger ones yet. But if you can get a zip file of your multi-tracks under 5 gigs, 48 kilohertz preferred, help me out here, because otherwise I'm going to have to spend a lot more time prepping them before we get in. Get them prepared, song, 2 songs, whatever you can fit under 5 gigs. Get them zipped in a compressed folder, and I'm going to be posting, gospel, awesome. I love gospel. I love R&B. Let's get that happening. Mixed and Fade Dave. Let's get that happening. But I'll post a link or an announcement about how you can get those tracks to me. I want to open your tracks. I want to work on your tracks. And additionally, I'll be doing some tests this week or this weekend, bringing people into live stream so we can talk back and forth and actually go through the mix back and forth, so that there's even more happening. So I really want this to be valuable to whoever's watching. I want it to be a resource. So I appreciate it. Thank you again to everybody who subbed on the YouTube. We finally did get our custom URL. Please share the channels. Share with anybody you know who's into audio. I'm just trying to be a resource, right? I'm not asking for money. I think there is a Patreon. That's totally up to you guys. But I'm not asking for money. I'm just trying to be a resource. If you think this is going to be helpful to somebody, please share it. Tell them to subscribe. Tell them to tune in. It's going to be a lot of this. It's going to be a lot of mixing your tracks. It's going to be back and forth. And then I'm going to be posting actual technical explanations and very short trainings on YouTube. Some of the clips from here will be on YouTube. Some of the live streams will be on YouTube. But there's also going to be some pre-produced content going up on YouTube that's a little bit more short, to the point. What is gain? How do you gain? That kind of stuff. Good resource for your teams, your churches, yourself. What if you want to get into audio as an industry, as a career? Hopefully this can be a pathway for you. Low barrier to entry. Follow along. Ask me questions. I'm here. I've always been here for you. I've always answered as many questions as I possibly can as time allows on all the platforms. So you guys rock. I appreciate you spending the time. Gotta flip back to OBS. I do appreciate you guys spending the time with me tonight, even though I had a bit of a late start because of the whole Mob Crush thing. But